Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to peel back the supernatural layers of the infamous Devil's Triangle and uncover some truly mind-blowing scientific realities. I mean, if you're fascinated by ocean mysteries, you've definitely heard the wild legends. But today we're sticking strictly to the data. So, the big question is this. Is this notorious 700,000-kilometer stretch between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico an actual paranormal vortex? Or is there a much more grounded explanation for all those vanished ships and planes? We've all heard the pop culture theories, right? Extraterrestrial invaders, underwater portals. But what does the hard science actually say? Section 1, The Legend of Flight 19. The modern obsession with the triangle really kicked off here. Back in December 1945, a totally routine, low-level bombing exercise by 5 torpedo bombers descended into utter disorientation. A squadron of 14 experienced Navy airmen took off just after 2 p.m. in perfectly good weather. But by mid-flight, Commander Charles Taylor, a seriously seasoned World War II pilot, reported that both of his compasses were malfunctioning. He actually mistakenly believed he was flying over the Florida Keys when he was really way up north over the Bahamas. And that critical error led him to order his men further out into the vast open Atlantic. The confusion up in the air was palpable, and it was escalating fast. One pilot radioed that they were completely unable to figure out their location, and he even specifically noted that the ocean just looked strange. These haunting last words from the squadron, right before their fuel literally ran dry in the dark, absolutely set the stage for all those alien abduction and lost Atlantis theories that authors like Charles Berlitz went on to popularize in the 1970s. Because think about it, when you can't trust your own instruments and the sea itself looks wrong, the human mind just naturally jumps straight to the supernatural. And the sheer scale of what happened next only deepened the legend. A mind-boggling 300,000 square miles of ocean were combed the very next morning by the military. And to make matters even more tragic, a search and rescue plane carrying 13 men vanished shortly after takeoff, believed to have exploded in midair. Despite covering all 300,000 square miles, absolutely no trace of Flight 19 or that rescue plane was ever found. Section 2, The Statistical Truth. Now, if you're tempted to buy into time-traveling alien abductors scooping up torpedo bombers, consider this cold hard fact. Lloyd's of London, a major maritime insurance market that's been tracking global shipping accidents since 1688, charges exactly 0% extra for insurance premiums for ships operating in the Bermuda Triangle. Why? Well, because they simply don't insure against myths. Statistically speaking, they found this area is just as safe as any other heavily trafficked part of the global oceans. When we compare those fantastical claims from the 1970s pop culture explosion against the official stance of the U.S. Coast Guard and NOAA, the picture becomes crystal clear. The sheer volume of traffic traversing this equator-adjacent route naturally leads to a standard proportional number of accidents. As the Coast Guard points out, we really don't need supernatural explanations when human error collides with the raw, unforgiving power of nature. This is perfectly backed up by journalist Larry Kush's 1975 investigation. He actually dug into the original records and found that earlier writers were routinely ignoring massive weather events just to make their stories sound spookier. In some crazy cases, he even found that the supposed vanished ships never actually existed in the first place. The mystery was largely manufactured by storytellers who just completely failed to fact-check. Section 3. Weather and Rogue Waves. But look, taking aliens out of the equation doesn't mean this ocean isn't terrifying. Oceanographer Simon Boxall points out that this specific region is infamous for generating massive, killer rogue waves. These are incredibly steep, highly unpredictable waves that can suddenly reach heights in excess of 100 feet. A wall of water that massive could easily snap a ship in half. In fact, Boxall suggests a rogue wave is very likely what sank the USS Cyclops back in 1918. That was a giant 542-foot vessel with 306 crew members that literally vanished without a trace in a matter of minutes. Beyond towering waves, the triangle is a total environmental gauntlet. You have these violent weather shifts driven by the Gulf Stream crashing into treacherous shallow reefs. Add a high frequency of tropical storms, and the fact that it's one of the rare places on Earth where magnetic anomalies can pull compasses to true north rather than magnetic north. And perhaps the most surprising hazard? Potential underwater landslides that release pressurized methane gas right from the ocean floor. This erupting gas can literally alter air density, potentially intoxicating pilots mid-flight and sinking ships by instantly removing the water's natural buoyancy. Wild, right? Section 4. Hexagonal Clouds and Air Bombs.
As if underwater methane wasn't intense enough, meteorologists were absolutely stunned to find massive, unnaturally straight-edged hexagonal clouds clustering right over the western part of the triangle, about 240 kilometers off the coast of Florida. Clouds are usually pretty randomly distributed, so spotting highly organized geometric shapes measuring up to 88 kilometers wide, that definitely raised some serious scientific alarm bells. Meteorologist Randy Cerveni theorizes these specific geometric clouds are essentially air bombs. These are violent, highly concentrated microbursts, firing winds straight downward at up to 160 kilometers per hour. When these atmospheric blasts slam into the ocean surface, they can instantly whip up gigantic 14-meter waves. It's a sudden, utterly devastating combination that is absolutely capable of downing a low-flying aircraft or swamping a ship way before a distress call could even be transmitted. But here is the ultimate twist. This isn't some localized curse. While these bizarre hexagonal clouds can definitely generate super dangerous weather, they aren't unique to the Bermuda Triangle. Identical formations have been spotted way over the North Sea off the UK coast. This proves they are completely natural weather events, typically forming right behind mid-latitude cyclones, rather than, targeted supernatural traps designed to swallow human vessels. Section 5, Bermuda's Hidden Geological Seabed. Okay, having debunked the myths up in the sky, let's dive roughly 20 miles beneath the ocean floor. Because this presents a massive puzzle that has bothered geologists for decades. According to standard geology, volcanic islands form over a hot mantle plume. But once that plume dies out and the tectonic plates shift, the swell is supposed to sink back down. Bermuda's volcanoes have been dead for tens of millions of years, yet the island still stubbornly sits 1,600 feet elevated above the surrounding ocean floor. So why hasn't it sunk? Using seismic waves generated by global earthquakes, researchers from Carnegie Science and Yale University were essentially able to X-ray the Earth beneath the island, and they discovered a really rare process called underplating. Hundreds of millions of years ago, right around the time the supercontinent Pangaea was breaking apart, carbon-rich molten rock squeezed up and forced its way into the base of the oceanic crust. It permanently cooled there, completely changing the very structure of the Earth below. Because of this cooling, instead of relying on a standard active mantle plume, a massive, ancient layer of buoyant, unusually light rock is acting like a giant geological raft. It's a staggering 12 miles thick, and it is physically keeping the entire island of Bermuda afloat. It completely challenges our traditional geological models and goes to show us that the deep mantle is still full of breathtaking surprises. Ultimately, what we really take away from all this is that we don't need to invent supernatural myths to make the world fascinating. From 100-foot rogue waves snapping steel ships in half, to terrifying 160-kilometer-per-hour atmospheric air bombs, to a 12-mile-thick underground stone raft physically holding up an entire island, the real facts of the Bermuda Triangle are just astounding all on their own. It leaves us with a profound question. Isn't the untamed, incredible, physically measurable planet we actually live on a far better story than any fiction? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. And remember to always keep your curiosity sharp.